everyone, my name is Sally Kennedy. I currently live in League City, Texas, which is just south of Houston. But I grew up in Minnesota, and today I would like to share a story with you about one of my favorite parts of my childhood. So, I grew up in a log cabin on 20 acres of forest in deep, dark northern Minnesota. There were a lot of remarkable aspects to my childhood, such as my mom or my dad having to set an alarm for every 3 hours throughout the winter. And it was a long winter. I mean, we're talking probably end of August to April or May. It's a long winter. Every 3 hours, they would set an alarm to go downstairs and stock and re-stoke, poke around our wood fireplace because that was our only source of heat in this log cabin. Another remarkable aspect was we had to plug in our car batteries every night so that they wouldn't completely freeze up. And a third was that we raced 22 sled dogs through most of my childhood. And I loved being with those dogs. So once a week, like clockwork, my dad would go on down to the kennels and he would pick 8 or 10 dogs to train and to exercise. And as I would see him hooking those dogs up, I would hop up from whatever I was doing and I would run down to our creepy, gross, cold, freezing basement and I would grab a big 100 below rated sleeping bag. I would run back upstairs, I would find a flashlight, I would grab whatever book I was in the middle of, I'd put on my coat, I'd put on my boots, I'd put on a hat, and I would run out to the kennels and I would throw that big giant sleeping bag right in the dog sled and hop right in. I'd zip it on up and my dad would be in the back of the sled completely clothed head to toe in fur and leather, and I mean he looks like a mountain man. And the dogs would be barking like crazy, so excited and all hooked up in their harnesses and their gang lines and ready to go. And I would be all zipped up in my sleeping bag. I'd have my little flashlight and my book, and all of a sudden I would hear him yell, "Ready? Okay!" And it would be complete silence. And the dog sled would just take off and it would fly through the snow just effortlessly, and you could only hear just like the panting of the dogs and just like flying over that silent snow. And it was just the most remarkable sensation. And we would spend hours just out on the trails and the back roads, and the dogs would love it and my dad would love it, and I was just in heaven in this big fluffy blue cloud and my book. And the only sounds I would ever hear is if we got to like a stop sign, my dad would yell "Whoa!" or to turn left he would go "Gee!" or "Ha!" and we would just do that for hours. And so by the time everyone was tired and hungry and thirsty, we would turn around and we would head for home. Oh, that was just the worst part. Because when we got home, what I had to do is I had to unzip myself from my little blue heaven and I had to run all the way back up in this freezing, I mean frigid, eyelash freezing, nose hair freezing, breath halting, cold air. And I would run back up the hill to my parents' house. And I would just pray that my mom had some hot chocolate on the stove or some fresh bread in the oven. And I would run in, and my sister would, of course, she was way too cool to hang out with my dad or the dogs or her little sister. She would be on the phone or watching TV or something, and I would just tell them all about my book and where we went, and it was just the most magical couple hours every single week that my dad and I shared. I hope you enjoyed my story. I hope it made you feel as warm and cozy as it makes me feel when I think back to those frigid cold years that we spent raising dogs in Minnesota.